Mhm. Okay, now let's do some toy tales. So we did this one before in vanilla JavaScript, and I thought it would be a nice kind of touch point to just see what has changed, what's different, and talk through some of the stuff that folks might be having some trouble with. There is, let me double check. Get well, great. Um, so it's going to be the same as the last one, more or less. We're going to make a request to an API to get a bunch of data for the toys. We're going to load those onto the page in the toy card components. When there'll be that form again, when it's submitted, we're going to post to the API and add a new toy to the server and have that show up. There's two deliverables that have a delete and patch in them. I think depending on what our time looks like, I'm going to add a like search field, I think, so we can look at like what filter looks like and maybe throw a sort on there, depending how time goes instead of those. So before we jump in, does anyone have any questions about it or anything else they'd like to specifically take a look at? Feeling good? All right. Let me hit the green button. All stuff over here and stuff over here. And let's hide dribbles. And here we are, Toy Tail. So I already popped it open and did the npm install, so that should be all ready to roll. So let's just take a look at what we have here. Let's pop it up and make sure that it works. Um, so in the package JSON, I don't know if we've talked about this specifically, but every package JSON has this scripts, or most package JSONs have this scripts section here. And one of them is going to let us start our React server like normal. There's also a server script in here. So we can say npm run server, and run is basically for kicking off any npm script that isn't start, test, or build, maybe. I don't know if that's true either. Yeah, run will run it. So we're going to pop open our server here, make sure everything works. Great. And we can verify that our server is up by hitting localhost 3001, I think it was. Maybe. Nope, maybe it's just 3000. Where did it go? It's running on, oh, yeah, 3001 toys. Cool. And so here's the data we're looking at. And this should look pretty familiar from last time. And let's pop open a web terminal and just give our guy a start. Then I'll start up the actual app. Or why? What error are we getting here? Ports. Why? All right. Hmm. Tokenize. I feel like I've seen this problem before. I don't remember what I did. Just do a quick Google here. I know I've come across this before. Let's see.
I think I actually saw you have this issue in a walkthrough that you did of Sushi Saga.
Yeah, that sounds right. Um, oh, I think it's the package lock. The package lock is out of date, maybe for certain versions. So let me do that here. I'm gonna r the node modules and the rf, so it doesn't prompt me. Node modules and the package lock. So basically, the package lock comes with it to kind of freeze the versions of everything. I think there's a version of something that doesn't work with if I have yeah, I'm running Node 18.12.1, which is relatively recent. And I think it might be, yeah, package lock is from last year. So maybe it's a little bit out of date. Let's find out. npm install. Nope. npm. Give it a minute or so. And then that will install all that stuff. If that doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. I feel like that's going to work. So let's go ahead and take a look at while that's installing, look at what we want to do here. So it doesn't have the fun GIF like the other one, but we've started up our server, or we'll be starting up our application. So yeah, when our application loads, we're going to make a GET request to our API here. And we're going to get all this data and put it into toy card components, put those on the screen. When we hit that toy form, we will make a post to the same API, and that should add a new one at the end. And that should render as well. And yeah, like I said, we'll save these till after the post and whatnot. Great. Let's see if that starts. No, aha, the SSL thing. It's a different one.
I'm pretty sure I had the same or a very similar error, and I actually downgraded to Node 16.18.0, and it worked for me.
Huh. I know what this one is. This is again a newer version of Node thing that you need to put a flag in, and the flag looks like this. So I can just do blimp, and that basically says for Node, add this flag on here, and it's saying use old versions of SSL if things are using old versions of SSL. I thought I had this in my startup files, but maybe I don't. Hey, there we go. Oh, it's just open in a different window altogether. Let's get in there. Wow. Okay, cool. Whew. Let's take a look at what we have. And so this looks familiar, right? Let's go through our application and see what it looks like. So we've got our index.html that loads our root div, and that's getting rendered into it. This is oh yeah, that's what it used to look like. That's what old React looked like. Either way works. So up here, we're going to look at our components. So our main thing that we're starting to look at here is the app. And so this has our favorite little button here, add a toy, opens up that form. I closed it, add a toy, closed it. Bad UI. But we'll take a look at that when we need to add it. It's got the handle click for that. And the important part here is what we're looking at. I don't know if we talked about the empty brackets here at all. That's just a HTML or a JSX fragment. Basically, it's just a way to group things because you can only return. Remember, each of these components or elements is actually a function that's returning a thing. And if we didn't have them wrapped in something, it would be like trying to return a bunch of things from an application, from a function. And clearly we can't do that. So a return in our component can only return one thing. So we need to wrap it in the fragment container there. So that's just a little convenient piece of syntax there. So we've got our header, that show form, and the show form here works a little bit different than the one in the vanilla JavaScript, right? Basically, we have a piece of state here that says either show the form or don't. That's set to false at beginning, and so it doesn't show. When we click on that button, that is going to just set the show form state to the opposite. And then we have a little ternary here that shows the form or not, depending on whether that variable is set. So not part of the challenge, but a nice little piece of tech you might want to take note of. But what we are looking at primarily here is a toy container. So I can just command click into that. And here's where our main stuff is going to be. So first thing we need to do is make a call to our API to get stuff. And we're going to do that with a fetch. And that fetch is going to happen with a use effect. So use effect, well, two things we want to talk about, I guess. Where do we want that data? My first inclination is to put it here, right, in the toy container, because that's the lowest place that I'm looking at now. I know, however, that this form is also going to be creating toys that are going to be added to that data. So I'm going to go ahead and add our application data to a state here. So let's take a look at our API. Again, is running off of here, localhost 3001/toys. There we go. So I'm gonna take that and throw it into a constant for us. API. So that's where our API lives. And collapse this for now. I'm going to add a use effect to do our fetch here. So use effect, and it'll import it up here. So use effect takes two things. It takes a function to run, and that function will run whenever the component renders, whenever that component is run to return a value. We only want it to run once. So the second part it does, so it's going to take a function and it does some stuff. The second thing it's going to do is take a dependency array. And basically this is an array to tell it when this state changes in this array. So show form. Oh, interesting. So when this state changes, run the effect again. Since we only want it to run once and never again, we're going to just give it an empty dependency array. So this structure is what you want to look at when you just want something to run once when a component loads. And in our case, what we want to do is do a fetch. Our toy API. So we're going to do our fetch and going to look at our familiar stuff. Nope, not catch. Do our JSON dance. Put it down there. I'm just going to console log out our stuff. So now when the component loads, it should make a hit to that API, and we'll be able to see this down here. And hey, look at that. I already did it. And we should be able to look in our console, Option Command J. Great, that's fine. And here's our array. So we're getting the data we're expecting to get, same as this. So we've done our fetch once, and it's only going to do it once instead of every time it loads, unless we reload the page, of course. And this is stuff you learned recently. So any questions about using a use effect to do a fetch with? Makes sense so far? Great. So we would like to show it on the page. So in vanilla JavaScript, we would, probably get it and then say, oh, we've got our stuff now, render it to the page by creating a bunch of elements and throwing them on there. I'm just going to close this for now. React again is the declarative type of thing. So we are just telling it what the page looks like instead of giving it steps to put things on the page. So really all I want, so right now the state is nothing here. I'm going to add a state up here for our toys. So I'm going to call it toys for now. I might change that soon. And since we know it's going to be an array, I'm going to set the initial state to an empty array. So that way, if there's any mapping or sorting or filtering or anything we're doing on it, as long as we have an empty array, it won't bomb out on us. And really, I can just say set toys here. And so now what it's going to do is the first time the component renders, it's going to do all this stuff. It's going to say, hey, I've got a use effect. Let's do that use effect. It's going to fetch our toy API, and it's going to render out the form that we saw before. When the fetch comes back, it's going to take the data it gets back from here that we just console logged out. And instead of console logging it, it's going to use the set toys to set our state. And React is going to be like, hey, my state was updated. I'm going to re-render that when I get a chance. And it's going to go through her again. We're going to have the new state. It's like, hey, I've got a use effect. Do I want to run it? Nope, because I already ran it. We don't have any dependencies. So great. That should get our state there. And if I look at our hey, where's my where's my React tools here? Huh. I should have my React component inspector here. Why is that not a thing? That's real weird. Well, let me install it real quick. I don't know why. Maybe React DevTools. Maybe Chrome updated or something for us. Hopefully. Yes, please do that. I would like that. Nope, I would not like that. Great. Well, that's awesome. That's a bug I will take care of later. But for now, we know we have this in state. So let's use that state.
Do we have to call use state where you have toys, or can we just do that empty?
Oh, yep, that's a great point. I should probably use state there. See, that's what happens when you don't have your debugger installed. I'd be like, why isn't that working? It's so weird that it's not giving me the tools. Oh, there they are. Decided to come back. Oh, you know why? Because it was probably erroring out because I had that and then it wasn't doing the thing. So let's take a look now. Hey, here's our state. This one's false. And here's our thing. Yeah, I bet if I just like do let's give us some garbage, it'll bomb out and not give me the thing. Hey, that's not even correct. Nope, I guess not. I don't know. Well, anyway, don't have errors in your application, I guess. is the upshot there. So we've got our state with all our stuff in it. Let's put that stuff on the page. Cool. So we have our state. So again, React is declarative. So we're just telling it, hey, given all this stuff, this is what it's going to look like. So in our toy container, toy container is going to need to know about the toys. So I'm going to pass the toys down as a prop, which means that so the first time it renders, toys is an empty array. It's going to pass an empty array down to toy container as toys. After our fetch happens, it's going to re-render the component that uses the states, and it's going to render it with the new batch of toys. So let's go ahead and take a look at that toy container again. So first thing we need to do is destructure that out of state. So I'm doing that like that, getting our variable there. If anyone hasn't gotten that part down, please holler so I can explain it a little bit more. And let's look at what toy cards look like. So here's where we're going to put our toy cards. What's a toy card look like? Great question. So a toy card is going to presumably take some data, and I'll just call it toy right now. And yeah, so we would need to look at what the data looks like and then fill this part out accordingly. So let's go ahead and render out the things first, and then we'll make them look the way we want to look. So I've got some toys. I want to tell the toy container to show me all the toys. Since I can't loop through it and put them all on the page one at a time, I'm going to need to use something that turns that array of toy objects into a bunch of JSX components. And how do we turn an array into an array of some other thing the same size?
Map.
Map indeed. So here I'm just going to say toys map. So I want to turn that array of objects into something else. And I'm going to say, here's our function. The toy is going to turn into, I want it to turn into a bunch of toy cards, right? And it's importing from in there. So yeah, so I'm just going to turn into a bunch of toy cards right now and see what that looks like. Great, there's all the toy cards. Awesome. Right now, the toy cards don't have any data, but we are getting some stuff on the page, so that's nice. So let's do the next part. So one thing that React is going to complain to you about if you don't put in, when you make do a map of stuff or make a list of things in some way, you're going to want to have a unique key attached to each one, or else it'll yell at you in the console. It's really important to keep that there, or to put that there, because of the way React kind of caches and re-renders and handles the optimizing of displaying those. Basically, if we don't have unique keys here, or if we do something like use the indices as keys, so if it was just like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, if we change the data, it would see the same key and just be like, oh, I'm just going to use the data from before, and your data won't show up, and you'll be tearing your hair out wondering why. Definitely had final projects that like people just lost their minds because they couldn't figure that out. So always use a unique ID for the key. Always use a key. In this case, I believe we have toy data with IDs there. So we can use the ID of the key or ID of the toy. And now we're just going to pass the toy itself down in. I'm going to say call it toy. So again, that shouldn't look any different on the page since we didn't change any display stuff. But why are you the same size? I don't know. Let's take a look inside the toy card again. And so we're taking the toy. And if I wanted to, I could just say at the beginning, console log toy. If I didn't have my tools hooked up for some reason, for some unknown reason, I can have this pop open here. And so every time it renders out a card, it's also console logging the toy that we have in there. So way number 2 to verify what we have. So now we just need to pull out the toy bits and put them on the card. So this is what our stuff looks like. And we're just going to start dropping stuff in. So instead of an empty thing, we want the toy dot name. Instead of the empty thing, we want the image source, and that is kept in image. And we can put our important alt here. Same. Class name is what's styling the cards, the way they're styled. And oh, look at our favorite thing, likes. So I'm going to put toy, I think it's likes. Yeah, great. Toy likes there. Cool. So we filled out all the information. All we've done is say, take that and put it there. And look at that. All of our little buddies. Oh, poor Rex. What happened to Rex? Is Rex not a real toy? Let's see. No. It is. Just doesn't like it for some reason. Rex. Huh. Well, maybe they've got a maybe this got sick of people yanking their images. Okay, well
that was broken on the vanilla JavaScript thing too.
Well, oh well, Rex. Let's see, Get this one. Let's just fix up that data. How about JSON Rex? Totally not important, but we're gonna do it anyway. Oop. Rex, what happened with Rex? I don't know. What if I put Slinky Dog's image here? This is something about that image. Oh well,
Yeah, I think it's something about the image.
figure that out later. Cool. So
I
but
tried to do the same thing earlier,
Mhm.
or a little bit ahead of you, and then somehow my whole code just broken. I don't know what happened. So at least yours didn't break. So I think you're one step ahead of me right now.
that's good. Yeah, I'll submit a pull request to that. Cool. So now we've got all of our buddies in cards here. Again, just following that through. When our app loads, we render everything. And the first time so if we put useState undefined here, it's gonna explode on us because we can't do a map on undefined. So since we don't have an array here, we can't do a map on it. So make sure that when you set state, the default state is the same shape as your main state. So we're doing that. First time we're going through, grabbing the toy API, turning it to JSON, sending that to set toys. Then it's going to set state. React's going to be like, cool, state changed. I'm going to re-render. Looks at the use effect. Oh, empty array. So I'm not going to do the use effect again. But I do have more toys to pass down here. So I'm going to look at my toy container. Oh, we grab toys. For each toy, we're going to map it and pass each object to the card. The card is taking this out, destructuring it, and putting those in there. And that, I believe, satisfies our first deliverable. Any questions about this? Hopefully this is relatively familiar to you at this point. If there's anything that is not totally making sense, please speak up now and we will talk about it.
A quick question on the setting state for the toys, I believe. I know that you put the empty array because like you're just replacing the array, but since that is being set, like if you just put null, would that also kind of break the code?
Yeah, because the first time this renders, it doesn't have anything in it. So it doesn't know that we're going to be doing a fetch or setting the data somewhere. So if you put null there, it's going to pass null in here, and it's going to try and do a map on null, which it can't do. So it'll complain at you.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, always remember, no matter what happens, your initial state that you set, it's always going to render the component with that state. So yeah, just make sure it makes sense for what you're doing with the data.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Other questions? Cool. So let's move on to part 2. So we're going to, and I think some folks were still working on getting forms, controlled forms, all that stuff hooked up. So let's take a look at that. We're gonna hook up the form so we can post a request. So this is actually several things, right? We need to hook up the form so it's controlled. We need to hook up our event listener to the form. We need to make that post. And then when that post happens, we need to update the data that we have, update the state so it shows up. So that one little deliverable is actually like 4 different parts. Using the ideas of controlled form and inverse data flow. I really dislike the term inverse data flow. I don't think that accurately describes what's happening, but that's an opinion that I have. So let's take a look at what we need to do. I'm going to go ahead and change this to show true at first so that we don't have to reload it every time. So here's our form again. Hello. Okay. For some reason I couldn't click into there. Here's our form again. I am going to take a look at what that form looks like. I do. Yeah, I have URLs in there already. Great. Cool. So what does this form look like? Toy form. That's what it looks like. So it is a, it doesn't use labels. Oh, tisk. A screen reader wouldn't be able to use this form easily, unfortunately. What the form is going to look like, we have our form. It's got a class on it. Notice one of the differences from vanilla JavaScript, and same thing with the toy container. What's missing in this that we really needed to use in vanilla JavaScript to hook it up in both the toy form and the button container?
It's like an ID or something.
Yeah, since we're directly throwing data into the quote unquote element, the component, we don't need to do like a document get element by ID to grab it. We are just telling it what it needs, and it's React figures it out by itself. It's super, super nice. So we don't need to grab the element and add a submit to it. We can just throw the submit on there, and we're going to do on submit. Again, which is not HTML, right? This looks like HTML, but it's not. This is JSX. JSX goes through our the Babel converter or whatever else we're using, and looks at this HTML, this JSX, and says, "Oh, on submit. I know what that is. That is, I will make that a event listener. I'm going to add an event listener to this element, and it's going to be a submit listener, and whatever goes in here, I'm going to add as the handler for that submit listener." So saves us a lot of busy work. And I'm just going to put I'm just going to put an empty in here for now. So let's take a look at what we need here. We have three inputs: our text, our image, and the submit button. We want to control this form so we can more easily submit the data and make it more Reacty, so we can look at it, debug it, think about it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do, and again, there are different ways to do this. I probably showed you one way in labs, one way in lecture. Basically, all you need to do is have some way to store the form data in state. In our case here, we only have two inputs, so I'm going to make two states, one for the name and one for the URL. If you had 20 fields, you would not want to make 20 states necessarily. Maybe you do. I would probably make an object instead that had those fields as keys. I could do the same thing here. Seems overkill for here, so I'm just going to do two states, but you'll definitely see different ways of doing this. And it just requires you to like think a little bit more about what's actually going on under the hood instead of pattern matching. So let's make our two states, one for the name and one for the image. And I'll try to remember to type use state this time. I'll call it toy name. Let's call it name. And since this is a string, I'm going to set it to an empty string. And I'm just going to copy that down there. And this is going to be image, set image. Cool. So we've got our two states. And again, we are controlling the form in this way. We are setting the state of this component because the component is just the form. It shouldn't care where it is or what's happening outside of it. All it cares about is I'm a form. I know about the stuff that's in me, and I know probably someone's going to send me something to do when I submit. So the state is actually the state of this form here. The state is what is being shown on the page, because again, we want to have that separation. Our data or our state is, you know, the stuff that is going to be shown in the form, and the HTML is going to be the display of that. Because we can display it in different ways, but I'm going to do it the same way pretty much every time this time. So since we have our state, we need to display it, and we're going to do that by putting the value in. And the value is going to be name, and the value is going to be image. Nope. Image. Cool. And so now whatever the values of those are, so I can put some stuff in there, and that should show up in the form. Great, because that's what the state is. So whatever's in the state is going to show up in the form. And now we need to hook it up the other way. We need to say when this changes, update the state as well. And we need to do that with an onChange. And again, this is an event listener. The onChange token, the word there is going to be looked at by the React parser and say, oh, change that to a add event listener, type change, put this callback here on it. And right now I'm just going to, well, let's do a handle submit. How about that? Handle submit is going to take an event. I don't know if we're going to use the event. Oh, yeah, we are. The event is definitely going to default. And we're going to have a console log out the name and image that we have in state here. And so I'm just going to say onChange is, nope. I need to make a different one. I'm going to do, oh, you know what? I'm going to use the same function for both of these. I showed you the other way last time. I'm going to show you this way this time. So basically what I'm going to do is when this changes, I want a function, if I can spell function, handle change, we'll call it. We'll take an event there. And so basically I want to say, I'm going to use the same onChange for both of them. Watch this happen. So when the value, when what is typed into that field changes, we want to call this function with the event. So we need to take the thing that was typed and make sure it goes into the right field. So how do we know if both of these are calling the onChange? How do we know which one is calling the function? Which one is throwing that onChange event? I'll say like const value equals something. How do we get the value out of that without explicitly, well, with just the same handler on both of them?
Event dot target.
Yeah. What's a target again?
Well, they're trying to target the data itself. So I guess event target, and then you would just add dot name or dot. Image.
What is a target again? Just to refresh on event target, what's that referring to?
I'm totally drawing a blank. I'm not
The
sure.
name?
Close.
The DOM element,
Say that again.
the DOM element that has the event listener
Yeah.
that triggers the event callback.
Yeah, exactly. The target on an event is the thing that threw the event, the element that threw the event, or the object that threw the event. So I can say the new value is going to be event target, and that's going to be whichever one of these did it value. And so how do I know which thing to use? Oh, you know what? I actually can't do it the way I have that set up, because the way that is set up is actually would be using an object. So I can't do it this way. Great, good to know. So I'm just going to add these in line here. Would it be useful for me to show you the other way to do it using an object, or is this confusing enough?
It's confusing enough.
Okay, great. I'm going to do it the basic way first, and
Wait, this is not a basic way.
this will be the basic way to do it.
Oh, cool.
The way I'm going to show it. So instead of using the same handler for both of them, yeah, I can talk about that later. I don't want to overly confusing here.
Like the other way would you would have to have the like an object for the state, right?
Yeah, I would say like const,
Yeah.
like new toy, set new toy.
Yeah.
That would be an object.
Yeah.
And then I would set the keys on that object according to which things through it. But for right now, let's just do it one each. So on change, I'm going to take the event just like we did before. And I'm going to say, since this is setting the name, I'm just going to set name to the event target value, which again is the value of the thing that threw the event. And I can do the same thing then here, just by saying set image. Great. So now this should be fully controlled. And let's take a look at what that means. So process not defined. I don't know where any of this is coming from. Did I? I don't believe that's true. Yeah, okay, great. Why? Oh, I see. The interesting. So this little error is saying that it can't, this is where it's saying it can't get the image. I wonder, yeah, I think they've got a server-side thing set up to say you can only get the image from that place. Interesting. Cool. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at this. So if I want to start typing in here, I'm going to console log out. When I hit submit, and that should, oh no, why is it not giving me the thing? Oh, because I didn't handle submit. On submit's going to be handle submit. Great. Let's try that one more time. Great. So now it's logging out the things that are in there. So when I change, and let's take a look at the component values here. So in our form, we have two states. Top one and the bottom one. So when we type in here, we should see this one down here changing. So that means when that form changes, and it's not even a typing thing, right? It's a change. So I can copy paste it and it'll still change. So we're not looking at the keystrokes, we're looking at that value changing in there. So when the value changes, we're going to either set the name or set the image. And now that we have that in state, then we can use those values for something. Right now, we're just console logging them. Questions up to this point before we do the second part?
I have a quick question on naming form stuff.
Mhm.
It might be probably something that we'll think about more when we do the post, but I had an issue in the like original forms lab where I was setting the state as like new name or like new image, and then when I was trying to pass that back, it wasn't accepting it, and I think it was because like the JSON data or whatever was expecting like specific like name, image, and not new name, new image. Is that a thing, or was I just doing something weird?
Yeah. So you can, the variables that you use don't matter, but the keys that you use when you make that post matter, because it is looking for it to be a specific format in the JSON. But it could be, you could pass in the new toy with like name and the variables sandwich and the image is hot dog. Whatever the variable names that you're using to keep that data in don't matter, but the names of the keys do matter when you're posting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and why don't I go ahead and do that to sort of demonstrate that. Any questions before I hook up the submit? Awesome. So again, this form doesn't care about anything outside of itself. So we need to give it a prop to let it know what to do. And yeah. So here, I'm gonna do a, yeah, I'm going to do a function called, so this is the naming thing again, right? This is where names are important to the programmer. There's two things I need to name: what I call the function that does the thing and what it knows it as internally in the form. So when I want to add a new toy, I'm going to call a function called add new toy. And that'll take, I'm just going to make that take a name and an image. Cool. So in our app, we want to add a new toy. Our form doesn't know what we're doing with the data. Our form doesn't know if we're adding a new toy or just throwing in a console log or sending an email with it. I don't know. All it knows is that it needs to handle that submit in some way. So I'm going to call it. Interesting. I want to call it handle submit, which means I need to name this something different. I'm going to call it submit form and then change that here. Submit, yeah, great. So it doesn't care that we are adding a new toy. We could call it add new toy and it would work just fine. But then when we come back later on, and if something has changed, this is just easier for us to use. So handle submit is the prop it's coming down with. And really, all I need to do is say handle submit with the name and the image. Since the name and the image are in the state, we know that's always going to be up to date. And we're just going to prevent the default and throw that up to where that's coming. And now, hopefully, go back to our console. When we reload, that should, no, nothing. What did it do? Add new toys defined but never used. Aha, you know why? Why is it giving us that error? Add new toys defined but never used.
You're not passing it as a prop, right?
Not passing it as a prop. Handle submit. And again, so you can see here, handle submit matches the name in the form. But we can give it whatever we want here. So we're giving it add new toy. And there we go. Now it's console logging that out. And that's getting console log from the app. So now, so now we can do our stuff. And again, so this is step 2 of 4, I think. We sent our submit handler down. We got the data up here in app where we need it. So now we need to add it to, well, now we need to post it and add it to our state. Those are 2 different things. So let's do the post first. Why not? So I'm going to post to my toy API. And since it's not a get, I need to give it some options. And what are they going to be? They're going to be method is post. I don't know if you need to capitalize it. I think you do. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm going to give it our headers. If I can remember what they are. And our content type. Cool. So our headers are good. And now we need to send it our data that we want. So we have the name and image. It is looking for name and image and likes and ID. So generally we don't want to set the ID ourselves. We want the database to do that. So we're not going to put the ID in, but we do need to set the likes. So likes are going to be 0. So we're just going to set that as we go along. So let me actually make a new object here. New toy. What does that object look like? It's going to have name. And it's going to have name. Oh, so this is the part. This one can be anything, but this one has to be whatever. So we called it, sandwich. That would still work because the key is the name. This variable could be whatever we want. That's sandwich in Dutch. And if they match up, we can do this shortcut. So
Quick question, is
Yeah.
that a ham sandwich in Dutch?
nope, it's just any sandwich.
Any sandwich, okay.
Yeah. So we can do the shortcut. So this is the same as name, image, and I'll put our likes as 0. Great. Yeah, but the variable name doesn't matter. It's just make sure that you pass the right variable with the right key. So there is our object. Hopefully that's what we want. We'll find out when we submit it. We want to send a body along, and that body is going to be, but that's not going to work, right? What do I need to do here?
Tell it to convert to JSON.
Yeah, because again, HTTP is a string-based protocol, and it doesn't know what to do with a JavaScript object. So we need to give it a string. So this will turn that object into a string that represents that object. The server will take that and then turn it back into an object, do the right thing. Cool. So I think that will work. And we can tell if it works by looking at our DB.json. I'm just going to throw some junk in there first. New toy is not defined. New toy is not defined. Let's define it then. How about that? Cool. So I'm just going to throw in some garbage here and submit. Ideally, it will submit that, and we will look at our DB and see that, hey, we got our garbage in there. Great. Is the garbage showing up? It's not. That's fine. But it is in the database. Great. I'm going to take that out. So now all we need to do is see what comes back. And so we can use a .then on our fetch. Let's put it here. So helpful, but in my way. Nope. And cool. So first off, I just want to see what comes back. And I'm just going to console log it. So in our console, we should be able to see, yep, that's a 5. We should be able to see what comes back when we send some garbage over. Great. And so what comes back is the object that was inserted, not necessarily the object that we sent, because this one also has an ID, which is very convenient for us because we need to display it on the page with a key that matches its ID. So we're going to use the object that came back from our post, and we're going to add that to our state. And first I'm going to take this off one more time. The next time should be for real. So instead of console logging it, I'm going to add it to our toys array. Can I just do like, toy, toys that push toy? Is that going to work?
You can't mutate the array, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can, but it's not going to do anything. The array will change, but React won't know that it changed, so it's not going to do anything. So what we want to do is not change the array by adding something to it. We want to replace it with a new array. And here's where our fancy newish syntax comes in. So we want to set toys. We want to replace our state. If we just replace it with the toy. It's just going to have the one thing, and it's not going to be an array, and everything's going to explode. So what we want to do is replace the toys array with everything that's in the array currently, plus the new thing. So let's start off with an empty array. So right now we're just setting new toys to an empty array. I would like everything that's in toys to be in this empty array, so it is no longer empty. And the way I can do that is with the spread operator. And the spread operator basically says, take each thing in this array and put it in the array. So if I just did that, that would be an array with one element that was the array toys. So that's not going to work out for me. I need to spread it out and stop scrolling randomly for some reason. I was afraid someone like hijacked my screen when that happens. Never happened. So I'm creating a copy of the array with the current contents of the array in it. You're going to see this syntax and the corresponding object spread syntax all over the place in React when you start doing real stuff with it. So if this doesn't make sense to you, A, ask questions, and B, practice and see if you can get it to work. And so once I've got all the original toys in there, I'm just going to add our new toy on the end there. And that should, so the whole process here, again, let's talk through this. We've got our handle click, we're passing it down. We've got our handle submit, passing it down to the add new toy. Add new toy is going to take the stuff that's in the form and call that handle submit with it. Here is our add new toy here. So we're creating a new toy with the name and image and adding 0 likes to it. We are taking that and sending along to our API with a post, stringifying it as we go. When that comes back successfully, we're going to take that and we're going to update the state. We're going to replace the state with an array that has the current contents of toys plus that last toy. And then the part that we don't have to do, once state has changed, React is like, the state has changed. And then it re-renders everything that uses state. So in theory, the toy container should just re-render with the new toys in it. Let's see if any of that is true. Jesse, your time to shine. Okay, nothing there now. Creating a new toy. Hey, look at that. There's Jesse. And I didn't clear out the form. I should clear out the form. So Jesse's on the page because we got her from our fetch then. Is Jesse in our DB? Jesse is in our DB. Great. Cool. And I'm just going to update our toy form to clear out the toys as well. I'm going to say set name. Whoa. Hello. I'm just going to set these values to the empty string again. So when we submit Jesse a second time, what's that other image? I don't know what that is. I hope it's something okay. Oh, it's a peach. Great. Or an apple or a butt. I don't know. That will show up in here. Great. So yeah, I think everything works and our form got cleared when we submitted. Bonus. All right, that's a lot of stuff. Ask me some questions.
Yeah, I have a question. In toy form, you have name and image and state in toy form.
Mhm.
Why don't you have those states in the app? Because like where you are actually using the name and image to append, like to create a fetch and then append it to that state.
I think I understand your question, but can you clarify just a little bit exactly what you're asking?
Yeah, so from what I understood from the lessons, like in Canvas, the state should reside in the lowest level component in which every component that needs that data can access that data.
Mhm.
So to me, the way you wrote this, it's like, it seems like the handle submit app.js is using the name and image data. You're using that in this handle submit function.
Yeah.
So why don't you have the state in the app?
Yeah, and I think you just answered your own question, but you have to listen to exactly what we're saying here. App.js is using that data. It is not using the state. Does that make sense? I bet it doesn't. So
it does not.
So add new toy. Add new toy is just a function that takes in name and image. If I wanted to, I could do a new use effect here that just said, add new toy. I'm a toy and I have an image here, and then empty race while it does it once. So all it is a function, right? And it's just, so right now I'm just using that function to, when it loads, add an empty toy. It's using the name and image data that I'm passing it. That doesn't need to be in state though, because the state that is being displayed is our toy list. So add new toy, the function is taking a name and image. It needs that data. And then it is doing stuff with that data that eventually updates the toy list state with that data. But we don't need these things in state in the application. And the reason we want it in state here is because state describes the state of the component. So the state of the lowest place we need that is in the form component. So app doesn't need to know how the toy form handles its stuff. It just needs to know, hey, toy form, when you submit a thing, send me the name and image.
Okay.
Internally, the toy form could do it this way. We could do it with, we could do it with an object that had the things. We could do we could use an array in a weird way. We could store it as something else. So what this state looks like, this state describes what's happening with the form and only with the form. It doesn't care what's happening outside, and the things that use it don't care what's inside. And in fact, shouldn't, because if we wanted to, we could have two of these, right? We could have two of these, two of those, each one acting independently. So if I load, so I'm going to have two different things in these two different forms because they are two different instances of that form.
Yeah.
It's not useful here.
Okay, yeah, and you would clearly need two different pieces of state for each one.
So if
that makes more sense, yeah.
If we kept the state up in app, we wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And theoretically, if we wanted to, we could keep that new toy and new image state up here and hook it up in a different way. We'd have to pass two handlers in here. But this way is more flexible from a component standpoint and easier to understand because everything, it's the single responsibility principle there, right? This is only responsible for what's inside it, and we don't want to bother anyone else with how we handle our stuff. Does that clear it up a little bit?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it helps a lot. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have?
Are there any downsides to having the post live inside of the toy form and then having the second dot then call the function in app that does the setting toys?
Can you say that again? I think I understand, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, so I on my in the toy form I did handle submit, and that immediately does the post, and then the second dot then I used a callback function that lives in app that then does the setting toys.
Yeah, I mean that's so. Given the way that this application is set up now, that's a totally valid way to do it. It works. Rule one, fine. The only, and again, this is a limited demo app, so we can do things a lot of ways. in an actual application, we wouldn't be keeping. So say this is where we're keeping it. I might want other things here to call add new toy. I might want to, I don't know, for whatever reason, call add new toy here. And since this is where we are adding that, so, but the fetch, we might want to use the fetch upstairs again, in which case you can just fetch that down. Yeah, right now, there's no reason not to do that. My primary reason for keeping it here is right now, this is the closest place to the data that's affecting, I guess. So since add new toy is changing this, I want to keep that and the fetch and everything close to where that state lives. But yeah, if it works the way the application is defined now, there's no reason not to do the fetch in the form. The other caveat would be the single responsibility principle again. This toy form, its only responsibility is to keep track of what you typed into the form and call a submit. If the app was larger, we might want to do something else on that submit. Pass a different thing that doesn't do a fetch. We're not doing that now, but just for like sort of compartmentalization purposes and flexibility, I would probably want to keep it this way. But again, if it works, it works. So there's nothing wrong with it as it sits, and premature refactoring. So
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to make sure I'm not getting into like bad habits by putting things in the wrong places. But
yeah. And so it's interesting, right? Because I have these habits only because I've done stuff like that before, or other things, which, if you're only doing stuff this size and that works, it's not a bad habit if it works. But I've definitely come across places where, I'll put something, down in a component or wherever in a function, and later on I'm like, oh, I don't know how to make this work now because there's such complicated wiring, and if I'd put it in this place instead, it would make my life easier. And so it doesn't matter for this or the code challenge or whatever little labs, or maybe even your project, but you will, and not necessarily this exact situation, you will solve problems and refactor things in ways that you will find ways that work better for you or work better for the kinds of applications that you write, and those will become your habits. Again, like nothing is good or bad here. It's just easier or harder. If it's simple, it might be easier to put it down there. If it's a more complex, it might be harder when you put stuff down there and you have to do more work to change it later. And again, there's no solid rules for any of this. Even, all the stuff we talk about, like the single responsibility principle and compartmentalization and all that. Those are just, things that have worked. They're not the right or wrong way to do things. I think that's where you get into a lot of like hot opinionated programmer takes where people are like, this is the right way to do it. Like, there's no right way to do it. Whatever works best for your situation at hand is the right way to do it. And that's different for everyone. And you learn good or bad habits as you work, and just like keep your brain mushy enough to change those habits when it becomes useful to change them. Long philosophical version.
thank you.
Cool. What other questions do we have about this part? All right. I'm going to go off book here, and we're going to add a search form that's going to use filter. Sort would do the same kind of thing. I just want to show you how to hook this up because it is definitely something that will be on the code challenge. So let's go ahead and put that form back up there. I'm going to add a search thing here. What's it going to look like? I'm just going to throw it up here. It's going to be a yeah, let's do this. So let me talk about what we're going to do first. I'm going to put a input box up here somewhere that's just going to say search. When you type something in there, it's going to only show you the toys that match the thing that is in that box. So that means I need a couple things. That means I need a state to keep what's in that search form, and I need some way to change what's displayed based on that state. So let me just throw a quick div up here. I'm not going to worry about semantics right now. And I'm just going to say search. And I'm going to say input type equals text. And yeah, so that will put our search form up here somewhere. There we go. Beautiful. Don't worry about how it looks. It's garbage. Don't worry, Mark. Don't worry. It's fine. I'm going to put some state up here and say, what do I want to call it for? Search term. And since, again, it is a string, I want it to be state. Why my brain refuses to use state these days. Cool. So use state blank. I am going to add an event listener to, normally I would put this in a separate component, but I don't want to muddle things too much. So I'm just going to have it update the state right here. Yeah, not send it up. I'm going to do an unchange that says, when I change it, I'm going to set the search term to the E target value. So standard, and what did I do? There we go. So same event handler as always that we'll do on those, and I'll show that when we type in that using my lovely components here. So this third state is our search term. When I type in here, that should change. Great, it does the thing. So now all we need to do is just get rid of that. Now all we need to do is change what is displayed in the toy container, depending on what that state is. Thoughts on how we would do that?
Maybe a filter by include search term.
Yeah, that'll do. Question that comes up for a lot of people and may come up in the code challenge. The first instinct I see a lot of people do is add another state, display toys or toys displayed or whatever, and that'll be a separate array. And then when they do the search, update that array with all the values. Again, if it works, it works. It's a little bit too much work for me. I'm super lazy. So yeah, exactly what you said. I don't have to change anything about the component or about the states once I have these two things. Again, this is where the responsibilities come in. Toys container's only job, it doesn't care, even though it seems integral, it doesn't care about anything that's happening outside of itself. All it knows is that, hey, you're sending me an array called toys, and I'm going to display a list of those toys. I don't care anything about what's happening outside anywhere. So we can send it whatever we want. So we can send it the full array, we can send it an empty array, or we can change the array with map, sort, filter, whatever we like. In this case, a filter seems like the right thing to do. So how is filter going to work? So we have our search term here. So we want to, so again, filter takes an array and it returns an array that includes elements from the original array that return true for the function that we're passing it. So we're going to give it a function. Let's call this toy. And so we want to return true for toys that match the filter. So yeah, let's do the includes one, and that'll work. So if toy includes this thing, we want to return true. and we want to search for our search term. Search term. So if I didn't do anything wrong, which I'm half and half about right now, this is basically just saying, hey, toy container, take that toys array and display all the stuff that matches, or hey, toys container, I got an array for you. That array is an array that is the original array filtered by stuff that includes our search term. And toy container is like, cool, whatever. I'll display whatever you like, buddy. And importantly, oh, what did we do? I broke something. Yeah. What did I break? Toy includes is not a function. I bet it's not. What did I type wrong? Includes.
Does it need to be toy.name?
Toy.name. Yes, because toy is an object. Thank you. There we go. Yes. Yeah, I said I was 50-50 on it. Great. Cool. And the important thing we want to do when we do stuff like this is make sure that it works when we don't have anything in here. So right now it's including every toy whose name includes the empty string, which is every string. As soon as we start typing, let's anyone that has an O. Hey, there goes the people that don't have O's. Anything that has a double O, just Woody. Anything that has a ZZ, just Buzz. Does it do caps? Yes. Aha, no. So it's case sensitive. So so that's how we're filtering stuff out that way. And literally the only thing we are doing, we're not changing anything else about the array that we are passing into the toy container. So that's the simplest way that I know of right now to do a search box. If I want to be fancy, I would make this its own component. Not really need to right now, but I probably would just to make it a little bit more nice, and then pass the thing up to set the search term here. But yeah, so that's how I would use filter like that. Questions about how that works?
How can we make this case non-case sensitive?
Yeah. So let's the same thing. So basically, I would say there's a couple ways to do it. I would probably say I forget, does uppercase do just the first or to uppercase? Yeah, great. Uppercase is what I want. So the simplest way that I know, I'm going to move this to a different line just so we can see what we're typing. I would say toy name uppercase. Is it capital C? No, two uppercase. I'm thinking of Python. Two uppercase includes search term to uppercase. So that way, both of them are always going to be all caps. So it should match either way. Unless I did something terribly wrong, which I clearly did.
Need the parentheses at the end, right?
Parentheses, yes. That's how we call a function. Boom, there we go. So now we should be able to take lowercase, yeah, L, great. So this matches the capital L in Lightyear and then lowercase L in Slinky Dog. Does includes have a flag? Prefer with case string position. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So we have to do it outside. Ideally, there would be a flag in the thing that we're using to match, but there's not. So that's a way to do a case insensitive. There are a dozen ways to do it probably, but that's the way I like. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Awesome. Quickly, I'm going to I'm not going to do that. So you all are asking about search as well, or sort. Sorry. I'm just going to show a quick version of what sort looks like. So here's all our stuff again, all in arbitrary order, or the order that they came in. Sort. So just like I can filter, I can sort stuff. And again, something that might show up on a challenge somewhere. Sort is an array on a method that takes a function and then returns a copy of that array based on that function. It doesn't change the original array. Important. So how does this work? The function that sort takes is a little bit opaque. It takes two parameters and returns 1, 0, or -1, depending on whether they come before or after what you're looking for. Which means you can write an array to sort things forward, backwards, forwards. You can sort on certain properties of an object. You can sort them randomly, not recommended. So basically what I want to do, if we just do toys sort, I don't think this is going to do anything now because it's going to be sorting on the object itself, which doesn't really do anything. So what I want to do is give it this function. And the way it usually looks is AB. And then here's where we look at those two things and return 1, -1, or 0, depending on whether they're before, after, or the same. And since we want to sort on the name, I can just have it return. Yeah, let's see if this works. Well, I've been doing Python lately, and it's in my brain, and it's making me hard to remember JavaScript things. I'm just going to do toy. No, a name. It doesn't have the rocket ship comparator here. No, it's not Ruby. I'm going to say. Does it have? I forget if JavaScript has the rocket ship. I think that's just a Ruby thing. Rocket function, rocket ship. Nope. Yeah, there we go. See that? Oh, spaceship comparator. That's what it is. And yeah, okay, that doesn't have it. Yeah, that's what I need to do for a string. Gross. That's fine. That's not what I want. That's gross. I don't want that. Absolutely terrible. Okay, great. Basically, I wanted to do this here. Oh, I hate it so much. There's got to be an easier way to do that for strings, right? I've definitely done it in easier ways. Sort strings in JavaScript. Yeah. Definitely easier ways to do that. Let's sort. Let's sort. Nope. Sort. How to sort strings in JavaScript. I want to loop. Oh, gross. These are all gross. Gross. Ooh, so they all work for numbers. Compare locale. That's what I wanted. Yes. Totally not clear. I knew there was one. So compare locale is a fun little function in JavaScript that takes two strings in whatever language and gives you the string comparator for those strings. So it's going to give us our 0, 1, or -1, and you don't need to worry about doing it the gross way. So I can just say, beautiful, great. I can say a locale compare. No, a name locale compare. B name. And so that should give us our 1, 0, or -1 comparing those two names. this is one of those JavaScript things that you have to I've done this a million times. I have to search for it every time. And it's hard to search for because people have a lot of bad ways to do it. But look, here we did. It's sorted by the first name, B, B, H, H, J, J. And so if I swap them around, if I did B compare A, it would put them in the other order, starting with Witty. So that's how I would use a sort. Again, compare locale as your friend for strings. There's different ways to sort numbers. I encourage you to look up those. It takes some getting used to, for sure. And this is one of the sort of things like JavaScript is a little bit ugly hangover with. Some other, like Ruby, is a lot nicer. Unfortunately, we're not using Ruby anymore. But yeah, this is definitely a look it up kind of thing, as you just saw. But basically, it's the same principle. Toy containers is rendering the array that we're sending it. It just happens to be an array that is sorted here. Cool. And we could even, so the cool thing about this is we can hook up both. We can put our filter in as well. And we can just chain them. So toy containers rendering whatever array we give us. That array is going to be our toy array. It's going to be filtered by the search term, and that's going to return the filtered array. And then that filtered array can be sorted by putting sort on the end. And we can just stack filters and sorts on there. And ideally, let's change this back to alpha order. Great. And so now if we search for a B, it's just giving us the ones with a B in it. Search for anyone with an O in it. Bo peep. That's M. Anything with an M? Great. And so we can chaining sorts and filters and stuff like that is super powerful, especially in this context where you're just caring about sending a thing to a thing. Stretch goals, though. We're right up on, yeah, cool. What questions do we have about this part? If our brains aren't completely mush right now. Anyone's brain completely mush? I'm low blood sugar right now, so give me that time.
Could you maybe do an example of how you would sort by likes?
Oh
as
yeah.
well?
That would be exactly the same thing here. So likes is going to be a number. So we have likes on here now, right? Yeah, great. Likes is going to be a number. So we don't need to do this compare locale stuff. There are a few ways to do it again. The quickest and dirtiest way. So dirty secret is sort is looking for -1, 0, or 1, but really it's looking for any negative number, 0, or any positive number. So we could do this. We can just do A minus B. We want to get our likes. So A likes minus B likes. And I can never remember which way it is. It's likes, plural. So let's see if it works out this way. Great. Yep, that's the way to do it. So here's all our negative likes, 0 likes, 1, 2, 3, 14. Buzz, popular guy. Yeah, so this is just sorting on a different attribute of our things. And since they're numbers, we can just subtract the first one from the second one, and it'll give us the right comparator. Magic. Again, this is something that you have to do a bunch, and so you either learn how to do it after doing it 100 times or learn where to look it up. So yeah, that's that. More questions? Cool. I think that is just about enough. Stop sharing there. Oh, chats. I didn't see the chats. What? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that exercises everything that you're going to see on the code challenge for sure. So if you can ignore those second deliverables, I think, yeah, because those are all patchy deleting stuff. Work on the first two deliverables and add a sort or a filter on, and you can play with different ways to do that. And yeah, just get some reps in on that, and you'll be all set for Thursday, I think. And again, we'll do more review tomorrow morning. Any closing questions before we head out?
I have one that may be unrelated. My dog had an appointment, so I was a little late getting in. I might have missed it.
Yeah.
What's a good way to re-render so that use effects go off again?
Yeah.
For example, in the case of in Woof Woof, I have a patch that
Mhm.
I'm doing, but I can't get it to re-render after that patch.
So is the patch in a use effect or is it hooked up to an event listener?
It is hooked up to an event listener.
Yeah. So that should rerun when you hit that event listener, just like any other event listener.
Okay, I'll have to look at it again to see what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing something wrong.
Cool. Final call for questions.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So if there's a sort on the code challenge, will it be like the two we've seen is like alphabetically, and then another one was like by price?
Mhm.
So that's pretty much what it would be.
I don't remember if there's a sort. I'm pretty sure there's a filter though.
Okay, like the search one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else? Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I will put this up on YouTube and post a link like usual. And yeah, if you have any other questions, give me a holler. I'll be around. I'll see you all later.
Oh, actually, real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just thought of this and it's pretty dumb. But if you had to sort chronologically, would it be bad practice to just concatenate the date as year, month, day, and then subtract to sort?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's like a separate method to sort chronologically.
Yeah, you would probably want to store so if you're storing in a database, there's a lot of different ways to store dates. But you would basically want to get it when you get it back into JavaScript or React, get it into a capital D date format, and that has some sorting stuff that you can do.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Cool. I'll see you all later.